views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.
Hello, Philippines. This is Eric Lecain with World News Jam. We bring you the most interesting stories from around the world each week. We just don't give you the news, but we tell you the story behind the news, as well as read and answer your questions in an entertaining and easy to understand way. So please join us on DZRJ 810 AM Radio Bandito TV and get yourself updated with all the interesting news of the week from around the world right here on DZRJ's World News Jam.
Watch and listen to World News Jam every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Hello, Philippines. Welcome to the World News Jam here on DZRJ and RJTV. My name is Eric Lecain. I'm joined with the fabulous Lali Tolentino.
Yay! Hello, everyone. Good evening.
You know what day it is, Lali? Take a guess. It's New Year's Eve.
Yes, it's New Year's Eve. We are about how many hours to go? And it's going to be 2024 already, Eric.
We are counting down from 7 o'clock here on the World News Jam, where we, for the last year, have been talking about interesting stories going on around the world, stuff that's happening mostly outside the Philippines, so Filipinos can be updated as what's going on in the world. Now, did you know, Lali Tolentino, that today is 123-123?
Yes. It's December 23, 12/31/23.
Yes.
So it's December 31/23. So that's why it's 123-123.
The only time
that
we will ever live that day. Of course, that is with any day. We only get to live it once, and then it's over. But this is such a great day that it's 123-123. I don't know why I find that so fascinating. So it's New Year's Eve here in the Philippines. And what we usually do, as Lali knows, every New Year's Eve on the show, we really don't talk too much about the news that happened that week, because you know what happens in the week between Christmas and New Year's? Not much.
Yeah.
Usually I can't even remember what day it is.
Well, you know, let me say something about that. If you cannot remember anything because you're getting old, Eric.
It's just always, in that week between Christmas and New Year's, you don't know when to wake up, you don't know when to go to bed, you don't know what day it is. What am I supposed to be doing today? It's Christmas. We don't do, should I do something? I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, especially here in the Philippines, for the last week during Christmas, it was a long weekend. So, you know, what do you intend to do, right? Now it's the same thing. We're holiday from like yesterday, today, up tomorrow, and then, you know, everybody goes back to work on January 2nd, 2024.
I know.
So it's a long weekend.
It's better than it being like, you know, New Year's falling on Thursday, which then everybody gets confused. Should I go to work on Friday? I mean, in the United States, during that time between Christmas and New Year's, that's when we spend taking stuff back that we don't like, that we got for Christmas. But here in the Philippines, just hanging around, not doing much, nothing. And if we think about the last years past, this year, one of the first stories that I wanted to talk about is the fact that COVID is over this year. We deemed it as being done, even though it's still going on, and people are still dying, still past my age, people still getting sick. According to the world, 2023, the pandemic was no longer a pandemic.
Yeah, I think they call it something else. They bring it down to a different level.
Yeah.
Because when it's the highest, like it's a pandemic, and then there's another.
I know it goes from epi to pan.
I think
epi to pan. It's somewhere along the line. So, but there are still. I mean, there are actually still a lot of cases, a lot of things going on, especially not so much in the Philippines, because I think in the Philippines they still have the same problem that they've always had with COVID, is a lot of people don't know that they have COVID, or they don't want anybody else to know. But there, in places like the United States and Europe, they still have quite a few cases, but they have deemed it to be over as a world event, as a global health crisis. So that's what 2023 gave us.
Okay. I know some people here in the Philippines, some friends actually, who still COVID today. So I was telling them actually, you have COVID? You are not in anymore. It's no longer it's no longer like the season like when we had a pandemic, like a few years ago. So you're not in. Why do you have COVID now?
Yeah.
So I was in because I had my COVID twice. It was still under pandemic. What about you? You were the first victim.
I know. I was the first victim of COVID, victim number one. But it is funny when you hear somebody say, I got COVID. I'm like, really?
Even our
you
president,
do? Are you sure?
Yeah. Even our president had COVID.
Just recently. Just recently he had COVID. Because now we don't think of it as that. Oh, you got COVID. So what? It's not. Exactly. Before it was a scary. Oh my God, you have COVID. Do you think you'll live? But now it's like, you got COVID. It's okay. You'll be over it in a little while.
Yeah.
I tell you this thing that's going around, this foot, hand, and mouth disease.
Oh my God. Tell Eric, can you share that? Because, still a lot of people don't know about it. Personally, I heard about it, but I don't know really what it is, how you get it. It turns
out, and I have now discovered this, I got a little lick of that foot, hand, and mouth disease. And it turns out a lot of people in the Philippines have had it in the last 2 months. It's been really circulating around. Now, it's not a deadly disease, and it's not going to cause you a lot of problems. It's mostly found in children. And it's just you get horrible spots and lesions on your hands and your face. And a lot of times, little kids get it. In fact, all the people I know that have gotten it have all been under the age of 4. My friends, my kid had it, and it's very easy to tell because it's not like the measles, or it's not like one of those type of things. It's only on your hands and your feet and usually your mouth. Wow. And it makes it very hard to swallow, and it lasts about a week, and it's just very painful and not fun, and there's not really much you can do about it. There's not a whole lot of, in fact, there's no cure for it. You just have to wait. You have to wait for it to go away.
Is there any medication for that?
Not really. I mean, they have medications that soothe the throat and painkillers to help because your hands will hurt, and your feet will hurt. But that's it. I mean, there's no actual cure for it. And the weird thing was, my doctor says, is usually as a 50-plus-year-old person, you don't get it because we have immunities against it. But for some reason, I got it.
Well, maybe, Eric, your system is still like a kid. Like
I know.
Your body is all...
I'm basically Peter Pan.
Yeah, I think so.
At heart.
You're 4 years old.
But speaking of playing Peter Pan, one thing that I love that I've always wanted to do in life, 2 things I wanted to do. I wanted to ride in a spaceship, and I wanted to ride in a submarine. Although after this past year, I'm not sure about riding in a submarine anymore. Why? Because one of our biggest stories of the year was about a submarine. And we talked about it here on the show, I think 5 or 6 weeks in a row, where politics and wars and everything went secondary. And the main story was about a submarine called Titan.
Oh.
And it was a small sub that took people down to see the Titanic, which is about 4,000 meters under the sea, which is where humans should not be. But most people, I think, knew nothing about submersibles before this story. However, after this story came out, people like me, now we think we're experts. We know everything about it because we've learned so much about it. But anyway, this company, the CEO, Stockton Rush, very cocky submarine cowboy kind of guy, like living life on the edge. He took himself and 4 others on June 18th down on an adventure in a sub to the Titanic to look around. I mean, I can't even imagine. I would love to do something like this until now. Because it was obvious that after they went down, they lost communication, something went wrong, and they couldn't communicate with the surface anymore. And so we talked about it here on the show because we thought they might still be alive. That the sub got stuck somewhere and they needed to send a rescue. But what's the problem with sending a rescue 4,000 meters under the sea?
Yeah, exactly. Until I don't know if they studied that already. Only maybe now when things happen. I mean, because if they have a study, and why will the Titan? They call it Titan. The
Titan, yes.
The Titan. All right. If that goes that deep, 4,000 meters, 4,000. Okay, and not able to float. So there's a problem. And you, Eric, wanted to go, and you want to experiment.
Yes.
And I mean, you want to be the, I don't know, what you have in mind that you want to see it, and
well, I mean, what a great thing to be able to see the Titanic for whatever reason. But this submarine that they took down, this tiny little submersible, they took it down. It had all kinds of features on it in case anything went wrong to get back to the surface. They could blow their ballast, they could do this, they could do that, which is why it was so weird that all of a sudden communication lost, and then it never came up. It never came back up. And the problem being is you don't have a backup sub to go down and take a look. It takes a long time. So they're like, okay, we don't know what happened, so they contacted everybody, and so they made this huge rescue effort to go down and see if they could find this. And it took them days to get they had to get the drones down. The problem was the air was running out. And so finally they got the drones down there, and finally, after 5 days, a drone found it. And it was nothing left of this thing. It was completely crushed. They found remnants of the people that were in it, but the actual submarine was just flattened. And it turns out that they knew it. They knew it all along. They knew when this thing went down, what happened was they believed that when they lost pressure, that they literally had no idea what was about to happen. The people on the submarine. They said, they lost pressure, and the time it takes for a submarine to implode is about 1/1000th of a millisecond. So you don't even have a chance to blink your eyes, and you're already dead. I mean, the whole thing is completely crushed. So they probably didn't even know. They're probably like, woohoo, this is great, and then it just, it just completely imploded. But the issue was that the Navy knew it.
Oh.
Yeah, they knew ahead of time, and they heard the sound. They knew it was an implosion, but they didn't want anybody to know that they had listening devices, that they were listening, because it's a secret device that the Navy had for listening under the water. So they didn't want people to know, so they didn't say it right away. But later, after they mounted this very expensive rescue effort, and they were already dead. Wow. I mean, they believe that they all died about 30 minutes.
Wow.
30 minutes to an hour after they left. And that huge 5-day rescue thing was just a lot of money. But
yeah, because of course they need to try to do first, like that would be the urgent thing that they can do. Like, okay, let's go down and find
yeah, maybe they're there down there, they're breathing their last breath of air.
Yeah, like any rescue, they will do that. But if the Navy is listening to that, so how did they find that? I mean, I don't.
So they took a drone down, and the drone was just, because the problem is when you get down that deep, you can't see anything. It's hard to see. So the drone was just kind of going around, and eventually it came upon the wreckage about 1,600 feet.
1,600
feet from the Titanic, the bow of the Titanic, and there it was. And they brought it up, and when they brought it up in like little pieces. I mean, it was completely flattened. So that was probably it. And it turns out that the reason that the submarine imploded was it was made out of this super modernized material, this carbon fiber, which they had never used before. And they tested it. They took it down a bunch of times. It's great. It's wonderful. It works. But the problem was when they kept taking it down, every time they would take it down, it would weaken a little bit. And they'd bring it up and they'd take it down again and it would weaken. And the difference between this and using steel or aluminum is steel or aluminum will bend. It will bend. Carbon fiber, nothing. No bend, no give, just it imploded. It completely imploded. That's why submarines, when submarines lose pressure, it takes a while because they bend, but carbon fiber does not bend.
Wow.
And they say literally they had no idea. They had no idea what happened.
Okay, that's a kind of expensive lesson learned.
Yeah, it's like $200,000 a ticket.
Oh my goodness.
But moving on, going now from the water up to the sky, another big story from 2023, Chinese spy balloons.
Yes.
Back in January, Secretary of State was supposed to go to China, but all of a sudden he didn't. And the reason he didn't go, because there was a giant Chinese spy balloon floating over the United States. And he's like, oh, we're not going to go now because there's a giant balloon up there. And people are like, why is it there? And the Chinese said, oh, you idiot U.S. people. It's a weather research ship used for meteorological purposes. We're just studying the weather. And you know how many people believe that?
Of course.
Almost nobody. And they said, well, it just deviated from its course. It was something beyond our control. Just let it go. We'll get it back. And so the United States were like, this is no weather balloon. And so the United States they decided to, we're just going to shoot it down. And they shot it down.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, and the Chinese were really mad. They were like, and they were like, you had no right to shoot down our balloon. It's the property of ours, and you should give it back right away. Not saying, oh, by the way, we were spying on you.
Yeah.
But they weren't really supposed to. The balloon wasn't supposed to be there. It was an accident, actually. It kind of went off course.
Okay.
But
whatever.
that was. So that was
whatever reason, whatever excuse.
big story
Accepted.
there in 2023. Of course, another big story we have to get to, which I don't want to get to, but the Russian-Ukrainian war reached its 1-year mark in 2023, February, so it's about to reach its 2-year mark coming up very soon. And like most, wars, it's gone on for too long. And the big, I think, most interesting story about the Ukraine-Russia war is nobody really cares anymore. Nobody wants to hear about it.
Because people get tired. Even me, I don't. Even the Israel-Gaza war, I don't want to listen to it anymore. But I have to.
I know. I mean, it's like, okay, yeah, the Russians shot another missile. Okay, that's the same thing they did last week.
Yeah, and then today was it today or yesterday? Yeah, they sent this thing to Russia.
Yeah.
So they okay, you did this to us, we do it to you.
Tit for tat. Here we go.
Okay.
And people are saying, what is it that's going to end the war? And one of the big stories that when I'm doing these stories, I'm actually just going through the stories that we did here on the show in the past, is one of the things that will make the war end. A lot of people think that's going to end this war is if Putin dies.
Well.
And they thought in 2023 he was going to die.
Because they thought he has cancer.
They thought he had cancer. And he may have cancer because he travels around with cancer doctors.
But, he, of course, every time he feels something, they can just inject something.
I mean, That's why and if he does have cancer, it's going to take him, 4 or 5 years for it to finally, if it's really that good. But they believe, anyway, that this is really bad cancer. But even so, still, with the money that Putin has, it's probably going to take him a little while to die. But there's another possible way that the Ukrainians could get out of this war, and that would be a government coup in Russia. And if you remember, Lolly, back in 2023, it's very highly unexpected that a coup would happen in Russia because, Putin. But it did.
It happened.
It did. And the Wagner Group, is that military group that fights for Russia, they turned on their boss. And the group, they were fighting there in Ukraine, and they turned their sights backwards and went to the motherland, Russia, and said, all right, we've had enough of this. And the head of the Wagner Group said the defense minister of Russia was an idiot, and he had duped Putin into waging this war for his own personal gain. And the fight between the head of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin, Prigozhin, how do you say his name? Prigozhin. We haven't talked to him in a while. And the Russian defense minister, they finally had hit a boiling point. And the Wagner Group decided, hey, we're going to march on Moscow. We're going to show you how stupid you are. And they marched, and they got right to the border. Right to the border of Moscow. And a lot of the Russian residents welcomed them. Welcome, come on in. So anyway, as they moved forward, the military, most of the Russian military was in Ukraine, so there was nobody there defending Moscow. So this became a very uneasy moment for Putin. Yeah. Putin had to make a big speech on Christmas, I think. I think it was on Christmas. He made this big speech that, well, we will take down all of these treasonous people. And in the meantime, he got in his fancy cars and he booked out of there. And he went north and stayed at some secret location north while this whole thing unfolded.
Yeah, well, and then what happened after that?
𝗪ន់𝗪 I'm going to mess his name up again. Lukashenko, one of our favorite guys to talk about here, who's the president of Belarus, he brokered a deal. He said, all right, listen, you guys, you Wagner guys, don't do this. Don't take over because Lukashenko needs Putin to stay in power. Because as soon as he gets knocked out of power, they're going to put a bullet in the back of his head. But anyway, so he talked to me. He said, you can come to Belarus, and you can stay here, and it'll be fine. We worked out a deal. And Putin was like, okay, we accept the deal. No charges will be brought against you. You can go to Belarus. And everybody was like, what? That is not like Putin to do that. He doesn't do that sort of thing. If you are treasonous, either you're put in prison or you have a mysterious death. So what happened just a couple weeks after that, the head of the Wagner Group and all his officials were somehow all in an airplane together, and that plane mysteriously crashed.
Yeah, and we know that, well, we don't need to, your guess is as good as mine. So
I wonder what happened.
Well, you still wonder?
No, I don't wonder at all. Especially because they have video of the plane. Actually, you can actually see the missile going into it. But of course, Putin says we have no involvement in this. But anyway, that washed his hands of that problem.
Yeah, of course. After that incident, everybody was quiet already. So
everybody was like, yeah, right.
Okay.
So that's what happens to you in Russia.
Case closed.
We kind of knew that he was going to get killed. He knew he was going to get killed. I can't believe he was on that plane in the first place, but that he was not hiding out somewhere in the south of France or something other than going back to Russia. I mean,
but Eric, remember, I think I made a comment when we talk about it that what if, like a movie, one day that guy 𝗪ć𝗀 will just show up and he's alive. Just like,
a lot of people said
like
that.
A movie,
yeah, they're like, it was faked. It was all faked.
Yeah, like any movie. But anyway, so
yeah, because the Russian officials were the ones that came and ID'd the bodies. So anyway, you don't know. But speaking of bodies, I don't know how I'm going to do this segue, but the previous president of the United States, who is a big body in the United States, was criminally indicted 4 times.
Is that new?
He has. This was what happened in 2023. I know it seems like it was years and years in the making, but it wasn't. It actually
this year.
It actually just started this year. Total of 91 felony charges against the former president. The first one came in March. 34 criminal indictments of falsifying business records in the first degree related to the payments made to Stormy Daniels, the porn star who spanked Donald Trump with a rolled-up magazine before having sex with him after his wife had just had their son. We all know that story. We've talked about it several times. And he paid her money to keep her quiet while he ran for president. And the second indictment happened in June in Florida, facing 40 criminal charges on mishandling sensitive government documents, conspiracy to obstruct the government. The third was in August, the incitement to illegally overthrow the 2020 election. The fourth were 13 charges to overturn Joe Biden's victory in Georgia. So the state of Georgia brought charges against him, and that is a racketeering case, which is actually the worst one. And since then, this year, Donald Trump has been found guilty of sexual assault. In the E. Jean Carroll had to pay $5 million, although he didn't pay the $5 million. He's appealing it, of course. And then right after that case was over, he went outside and said she was lying. And you know what she did? She sued him again for saying that again. And in New York State, he is being sued for decades of fraud against the state for $250 million.
I think that's the $250 million for him is peanuts.
That is not peanuts for him.
For
You know,
him?
you think
Because
that
he's
Donald
broke.
Trump is so rich, but he's not. He
Yeah.
actually doesn't have the cash. He's got the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but what they say they're going to do in New York is they're going to immediately take his stuff. They're going to go in and take all his buildings and see if they can get some of these golf courses and really bring him down. You know, you think $250 million for a billionaire, but the question is he a billionaire?
Well, you know what? That everybody believes that he is a billionaire. That's why, you know.
Because he says it. Because he says it over and over
He
again.
claimed that, you know, imagine he overpriced all his properties. So, you know, basically, so
Yeah.
you would think, because if you're a believer, if you think you know, you're a fan of Trump, so you would believe him. So now with everything, you know, you hear all the story now. So like, okay, so it's not true. It's not billions. It's only millions. So
Yeah,
you know.
it's 250 million. But the interesting thing is, people keep saying, you know, all these indictments, which I haven't talked about it so much lately because it all runs together and gives everybody a headache because nobody can remember which indictment goes to which charge. But the thing Donald Trump is doing now, people are saying that he might figure out a way to get through this because right now he's just delaying it.
Yeah,
he's delaying and appealing and appealing and appealing,
course.
and he may get this thing delayed until the actual election. And then when the
Yes.
actual election's up, he's like, "Well, we're having the election. You can't indict me now."
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, you know, all the delaying tactics are ongoing.
Ongoing all the time. And thinking of things that are ongoing, Palestinians and the Israelis are at war. Now, we're stating the obvious, but this is what happened in 2023, so this is our recap. You know, the Palestinians, mostly Hamas, the people that run the Palestinians in Israel, they are the leaders there, they planned and carried out one of the most incredible attacks the world has seen in modern history. I mean, everything from, you know, sneaking across the border on foot. They used paragliders. They incredibly planned this whole thing out. And basically, Israel was caught probably with its pants down. Israel, which has one of the best militaries, most equipped, most smartest, best intel militaries in the world, all of a sudden, Palestinians were able to just run across the border. And when they ran across the border, they knew right where they were going. And they went to these villages with civilians who did not have machine guns, were not able to fight back. And they went from house to house and killed them. They killed women, they killed children, they took hostages, they raped, they did everything that you could think is the worst possible thing you could think of that they would do. In the end, 1,200 people died. And for the most part, the Hamas didn't have any resistance. In fact, supposedly they were surprised that they didn't have any resistance. But many believe that the reason for the attack was to get Israel to attack them.
Yeah, and it's happening. They want to get now because now that's why they, you know, Israeli, they don't stop. They, you know, now the ongoing thing. I mean,
21,000 people in Gaza have been killed at the hands of the Israelis. I believe, as do a lot of people, this was the plan all along, is to get go to Israel into this. They're going to come in, and they know that Israel is being run by right-wing conservatives, and they're going to come in and just slaughter the Palestinians. And what's going to happen is the larger countries surrounding them are going to want to get involved to try and help the people, the poor Palestinians, which I have to say, the Palestinians of Gaza, they're not military people. They're just people trying to find something to eat.
Yeah.
And they're getting blown away by the Israelis. Now, the world had made a deal with the Israelis, okay, do not attack civilians. And the Israelis made a deal. Yes, that's what we're not going to attack us. We're going after Hamas. And then they killed how many civilians anyway? So the world, I think that they are hoping that Iran, Egypt, Libya, Hezbollah, all these people are going to get involved. And then Hamas has done what it set out to do, which is start a war that can never end.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's happening. So, but then I think Israel will not stop because the more the, because like I said, in war you cannot really avoid killing the civilian because they are there. You cannot even find the Hamas who among these people. Let's say they have 100 people. Can you identify who is Hamas there?
Yeah, but I think the issue being is like, oh, there's a Hamas person in that building, and there's 200 civilians, and Israel goes ahead and blows up the building anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's the problem, I think.
Yeah, that's a problem. Even if there's only one Hamas in that that area, so what can Israel do?
They say 100,000 buildings have been destroyed or damaged. 800 tunnels have been. The 240 hostages that they took on October 7th, most of them were hidden in those tunnels. Now they did have the time. They did, just to update everybody, they did give back some of the Qatar brokered a deal of all places, Qatar, and the fighting stopped for a week. And 78 Israeli women and children, 23 Thais, 3 Russians, 1 Filipino were handed back over to Israel. 240 Palestinians were freed. Let them go back to Gaza. And then immediately when they decided, okay, we've given out as many hostages as we are, boom. They started fighting literally on the hour after it ended. But the interesting thing is, and then we'll move on here, that the UN General Assembly, as we were talking about last week, made a non-binding resolution calling for the immediate humanitarian ceasefire and release of the hostages, and the U.S. vetoed it. Because if they did this, the U.S. says, then they will stop attacking Hamas, and Hamas will have a chance to regroup. So on the 22nd of December, another one was adopted. However, it did not have the word ceasefire in it, which is, and on Christmas Day, Netanyahu came out and said, whoever talks about stopping, there is no such thing. So as of now, the UN General Assembly is making these resolutions, and then Netanyahu's like, hey, you can make all the resolutions you want, but we're not stopping.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what that's what they're doing.
So anyway, that's what's going on there in Israel. Now, over in the United States, I wasn't going to sure. Let's get through all the bad stuff for here. In 2022, one of the big stories we talked about was mass shootings. And at the beginning in our show last year, I went back and looked at it. We talked about what's going to happen. Are we going to do anything to better 2023? Well, in 2023. Mass shootings around the world, we didn't talk about it that much because there were not that many, except in the United States.
Well,
which
in the United States is always #1 in everything.
They outnumbered the world in mass shootings 3 to 1.
Yes.
The world combined, the whole world, the United States still outnumbered them 3 to 1.
Yeah, that's right.
So, in other words, from last year to this year, not much has happened. Just some of the ones that we talked about here on the show, Lewiston, Maine, at the bowling alley, 19 people killed. Back in January, California, 72-year-old man came in, killed 9 people in a dance studio. Texas, in the mall, man walks in, kills 8 people. Utah, man kills his 5 children and their mother before killing himself. Nashville, the elementary school there where 6 kids lost their lives. The Half Moon in California Farms, 7 killed. In Oklahoma, the last one, a registered sex offender killed his wife, her 3 children, 2 of their friends before killing himself. I mean, I could go on the rest of the show just talking about this.
Yeah,
but
I think it's too boring already.
It's like I said, in between that in the United States, the mass shootings and abortion. The same subjects we've been talking about for the last how many years on here, guns and abortion there, because last year the federal abortion law was overturned. Huge deal in the United States. And so, it's just, it's one of those things we keep talking about every year, and I'm going to talk about it at the end of this year, very short, but we're going to say, and wait to see what happens next year. Next year after our presidential election. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, Lolly, was, and Lolly, you and I are getting along in years, and we know a lot of these people. Maybe some of the people out there wouldn't know who they are, but I like to take a look back at the people that passed away.
Yeah,
in
okay.
2023. Lisa Marie Presley.
Yeah.
We did a whole show. Lisa Marie Presley, she's the daughter of Elvis Presley. She died January 12th, and she was rather young. Suzanne Summers from Three's Company, one of my favorite actresses. She died at 78. And then, of course, Matthew Perry of Friends, who died at age 54. One of the best comedic actors, I think, of our time. And we talked about him quite a bit here. And recently, Henry Kissinger, who possibly they say is responsible for more deaths than anyone alive, died at 100.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jimmy Buffett, which I know a lot of fans here in the Philippines, Margaritaville. Bob Barker from The Price is Right, died at 99. One of my favorite actors of all time, Pee Wee Herman. Paul Rubens died this year at age 70. Sinead O'Connor died at 58.
Yeah.
And then I know one of your favorites, one of my favorites, Tony Bennett,
Yeah.
passed away this
Also
year,
great.
96 years old. Now, I don't know if you know who this guy is, Lolly. Ted Kaczynski.
Actually, no. I'm not so familiar about, this
I wouldn't know if you. Ted Kaczynski was very famous back in the 80s. He was the Unabomber. He's the one that scared everybody in the United States for a long time to open their mail because he sent letters with bombs in them.
Really?
Yeah, so he died finally, thank
Oh,
goodness.
okay.
Tina Turner.
Oh, yeah. Tina is one of my favorites.
I know. I loved Tina Turner, age 83. Jerry Springer, which a lot of people here in the Philippines might not know, although they showed his show here in the Philippines. One of the first people to have real actual people on his show. Like, your father cheated on your mother with her sister, and you're their child, that kind of thing. He died at 79.
79.
But he was another one of my favorites, Harry Belafonte.
Harry.
The great singer. He died at 96. Raquel Welch, remember her?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love Raquel with a beautiful body.
Raquel Welch,
She's my
who still had a pretty good-looking body, even at 82. Another favorite here in the Philippines, Burt Bacharach.
Yeah.
Burt Bacharach, 94 years old.
Wow.
Burt Bacharach finally passed away. And then a couple guys, I'm not sure, David Crosby. We had talked about him on the show when he passed
Yeah,
away at
David,
81, of Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And Jeff Beck, one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, died at 76. So that is some of the people that we lost here in 2023. There's actually a long list, but that's the ones that the people that I knew. One other person that we lost in 2023 was Tucker Carlson. He was fired from Fox.
Well, he did not die.
No, he did not die.
Yeah,
Tucker Carlson
he's
is still
fired.
alive. He's got his own show now.
Okay.
But he was fired from Fox. Fox, who was sued by the Dominion voting people for $1 billion,
Yeah.
and they had to pay a stupid amount of money
I know.
for lying.
Yeah, and this has all happened during the Trump's campaign, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time that a news company had to pay that much for telling a lie.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, well, why did they allow it?
Why did they allow? I mean, for viewerships. I mean, okay, so yeah, Fox News, they could drop $1 billion, no problem. But it was enough for them to fire their #1 watched person on their news network, Tucker Carlson.
That's Tucker, yeah.
They finally said, all right, enough. We can't handle Tucker anymore. And they got rid of Tucker Carlson. Speaking of Tucker Carlson, one of the other big stories we talked about for several weeks here was the ability to vote in a Speaker of the House in the United States. The United States Congress stood still for many, many weeks because they could not vote for Speaker of the House. And Kevin McCarthy wanted to be Speaker of the House, but nobody would vote for him. And finally, he made a deal with the MAGA people, and the Trump MAGA people said, all right, we'll let you be Speaker, but if you don't do what we say, we're going to kick you out. And so I think it was, a couple weeks later, they kicked him out.
Yeah. Oh, what a mess.
What a mess that was. And then they couldn't vote for another guy. They tried to vote another guy in. They couldn't find anybody else.
Took a while, yeah.
And so finally they voted in the worst possible guy I think they could have, another one of these MAGA guys who, pushed the big lie. But anyway, speaking of big lies,
One of your favorites.
Guess who got kicked out of Congress in 2023? Lolly Tolentino.
George Santos.
George Santos, one of our favorite guys to talk about here on this show, probably the single biggest liar ever
I know,
in the
right?
history of any
But-
government, anywhere.
But now he has his own business.
You know,
Wha- Is it in TikTok? No, it's a.
you know, the last I heard, I mean, George Santos was doing this website where you go on and you do like birthday greetings for your friends. So he charges like $200 or something like that, and he'll do a birthday greeting for your friend.
It went up already to 400.
I mean, yeah, probably. He's probably
Yeah.
probably a lot of
Even
people.
higher.
Probably people who people who really don't like George Santos. People are sending them cards
Yeah.
with him Christmas birthday greetings from George Santos.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That's funny.
so that was we love talking about George Santos, but unfortunately he is out. But you know what? We did talk about a lot, and I wanted to get to this as well. Some of the worst environmental disasters happened in 2023.
Oh,
And I know we're always talking here about climate change and all this kind of issues and whatever. But I remember, Lolly, we sat, I think a couple weeks we talked about this, the issues that happened in Hawaii,
Oh yes.
on the island of Maui, on August 8th. It was the setting for the perfect fire. It was just waiting to happen, and the fire came up. 100 people died, or
Yeah.
they think even more. But that was one of the big environmental stories of the year. So was Rwanda. They had the worst rains and flooding. 129 people died. Cyclone Mocha killed 145 people in Myanmar, and then the earthquake in Nepal.
Yeah.
That was really bad. That was a 5.6, which we handle those in the Philippines all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But in Nepal, 157 people died. And then, of course, they had the flood in the Congo, which I think 438 people lost their lives. And then in Malawi, they had the cyclone in the country, 679 people. But they believe that it's way more than that. It's just that it's hard for them to tell.
Oh yeah. It's hard to track already.
But they think it's over 1,000. And then, Lali, I'm sure you remember this, the earthquake in Afghanistan.
Oh yes.
6.3 earthquake in Afghanistan. And the problem in Afghanistan was that, you know, the buildings there are not structurally all that sound. A lot of them have been there for hundreds of years, and people are living in them. And a lot of people died from the house falling in on them. 679 people. No, I'm sorry.
1,000.
1,480 people. I'm reading off the long line. 90% of those were women and children because of where they were hiding. They went to hide. The earthquake in Morocco that killed 2,946 people. Daniel, the storm in Libya that killed 4,352 people. 8,000 of those are still missing. But the big one, and I know we talked about this one, I think 2 or 3 weeks, was that earthquake in Turkey.
Yeah.
The earthquake in Turkey, which killed 55,000 people.
Wow. Look at that. I mean, I call this really, when I hear things about this, I always say it's really the climate change.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Something's going on. I mean, you know, if you go back and you look at disasters from before, I mean, there's some big ones, but in 2023 we had some huge ones.
Yeah.
And you know that I want to get down to, since we're talking about this, 2023 was actually the hottest year on record. And I'm like, how would you know? How do they know this? And supposedly they have a way. They have a way of telling. Like even all the way back to the dinosaurs, they can tell how hot it was by looking at the rocks and something. They have some scientific way of doing it. But, you know, I just, you know, when I see these kind of things, I mean, it's funny to think that the dinosaurs may have been colder than us. But anyway, but you can't, you know, you can't go outside now in so many countries in 2023 without saying that climate change is doing something to the earth. And things are all out of whack. The summer of the northern hemisphere was the hottest and the ocean went up way more predicted. The average temperature in the world, now get this, this is weird. The average temperature in the world in 2023 was 15.1 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
That doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah.
That seems fairly comfortable. But actually, that is really hot because that's the average temperature in the world of the entire globe. And that's, for the entire 12 months, which is actually 1.46 degrees higher than the year before. And that's a lot. The southern hemisphere broke all kinds of records. Brazil was 42.5 degrees for a while, and it reached what the real field temperature, they say there, was 58.5 degrees, which is almost on the borderline of being too hot for a human to live.
Whoa. Well, thank God Philippines, our weather is...
Philippines still okay.
Yeah, we're doing okay because we're used to it, I think.
Well, and also the Philippines is situated in such a place where the temperature really doesn't get hotter or colder. It kind of stays in the same area.
Plus, we are surrounded by water.
Yeah, I mean, it's in that area of the world, Southeast Asia. But Russia hit 38 degrees, and 38 degrees in Russia is insane. The United States broke all kinds of records in 2023, mostly going into the 40-degree levels for the entire time between the summer months. They say the U.S. waters were 4 to 7 degrees higher Fahrenheit above the normal average temperature of the water. And so all the reefs, like a lot of the reefs in Florida, all died. They disappeared because the water was just too hot. Antarctica suffered all kinds of ice extent issues, which is how they record the glaciers there. They said the glaciers are melting faster than ever before. So that the ocean levels have rose globally in 2023 was one of the highest ever because of the glaciers breaking off and going into the ocean. So they said that, and I think we talked about this during that time, June was the warmest month ever. And then June's record was broke by July, and then August. So it's been interesting that this is what the world is going through right now.
Well, I don't know what to say. And everybody's talking about what should we do, so we can avoid or probably. Well, there's even summit for it. I mean, they have done some, talk about this.
Yeah, they said that they're actually doing a good job. That happened 2-3 weeks ago when they had that thing, and they said, you know what, the United States, the world is actually doing better.
Yeah, but then what are they doing?
I mean, they're putting a lot of money into it. Put it that way.
Yeah, they put money. Where did the money go?
Yeah, where does the money go?
Yeah, I mean, like specifically because they're doing something. What are they doing? So because
they say they brought down emissions in this many countries. That they've been able to change the pollution level in this many countries by this much. So they are saying that there is some progress.
Okay, if that's the case, because probably I'm not really paying that much attention on what they're doing. But
but
of course we will wonder. And what are they doing?
And it depends on who gets elected. I mean, right now, Donald Trump is, on his way to possibly being the next president. And he has said, as soon as he becomes president, he's going to drill. That's the first thing. Yeah, I'm going to drill. I'm going to shut down the borders. I'm going to drill. So,
okay.
And he's going to be a authoritarian leader. So, thinking of other things that are going on, GPT-4 was released, and this has become a big deal. And I want to do at least one tech story from last year, and this was, I think, the most important one. And I have GPT-4, and if you've never used it before, it's just a thing where you can type in, I want to write I want to know about this, and you type it in, and it tells you. And people think it's great, it's the best thing, and then some people think it is the downfall of our civilization.
By the way, Eric, what is GPT?
GTP is it's a piece of software that is designed to, what it does is it's AI, and it will write for you. It will do all kinds of things. In fact, they had it take the bar exam in the United States, and it scored 90% better than any of the students. It took the GRE to score better than anybody. And basically, it's, you can say what you want to write, and it will write like you, but better than you. So it takes away our ability to need to think. It can think for us. And news companies are using it now to write stories. However, the problem that people have with it, and they've been having all these hearings and so forth about it, is that sometimes it can be manipulated. Because where does GP get its information from? It's got to get it from somewhere.
Yeah, that's my question. I mean, and I know it can be manipulated because who does it? Who make it? People.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to get the information from the internet. And that's what GPT-4, supposedly a real-time internet. So you can, if something happened an hour ago, you can say what happened there, and it'll give you 400 words about what happened there in its own, its own words. It's not copied. It's not copied and pasted. I can do that, but it writes it. It writes it for you, discerning from, millions of websites. It'll look at millions of websites and write something for you. But that's the question: is, if news companies are now using this to write their news stories, is it right?
Yeah.
All the time?
It's favorable. I mean, it's in, if they're using this one, it's for their advantage. But does it really says, is everything, are they telling the truth already? I mean, are they a real story? I mean, I don't know if they manipulate it.
I wonder how, we have to, we talked about a lot. We talked about the writer's strike in Hollywood and the actor strike.
Right.
And the writers were really mad about the AI because they're like, it can write in my style. So it looks at my words and then it writes it so you don't have to hire me anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's my worry also about that, because, like, for example, everything will be done using the machine. So what can a human do? So like in the banking system, what if everything is like manipulated or being? I mean, everything is about. They're using
exactly. I mean, I had a conversation with a guy who developed an AI system for banks. Now, if that's not scary, I don't know what is. Because what if it decides to just, I don't know. I mean, who knows what AI could be manipulated to do. So that's one of the biggest tech stories. And one of the other stories, before I run out of time here, one of the other stories that was big in 2023 is, are there beings from other worlds? And I know we're jumping the gun here a little bit, but that was a big story for a while. They had a hearing in the United States, in the Senate, in the Congress, and they talked to these guys who, from the military, that said that they know for sure that there are UFOs, or UAPs as they call them now. And the United States was covering up this whole thing where they went to a crash site and they found biological material that is not human. And I think that's probably where we'll probably stick it for our 2023 show. Is are we alone? Which I think is, if we ever could prove that, if we ever could absolutely, without a doubt, prove that we are not alone in the universe, that would be the single biggest story.
Well, let's wait and see. What if 2020? We will find out by next year, 2024.
Well, they said that after this hearing, they said one of the things they're going to do is no more of this, discarding and secret, everything. So now we're going to put it all together and we're going to let everybody know.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe
we're
that.
Waiting.
I don't. Yeah, I'm waiting for that. But besides Taylor Swift being Person of the Year, Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and people saying that a civil war may break out in the United States, which, by the way, I don't believe that.
Well, I don't think they will allow that.
Only
if somebody get elected and declare that.
Yeah, because that's what they're worried about. And they said, if he gets elected, or if he doesn't get elected, but then tries to get himself in the office anyway, that 42% of Americans think that a civil war is on the brink. But you know what? I don't think so. I think there's enough people in the United States that don't care, that need to worry about their own lives, as opposed to picking up arms against their neighbors. I don't think it would be that many people.
Well, not too many. There will be, but not too many people. But there, the fanatic only will,
I know. It's only. It's not like it was back in the 1800s where they were fighting for their survival. So I think that hopefully the United States will not have a civil war, and that the big upcoming election will be peaceful, but I'm sure it won't be. I just know.
Yeah, it depends on what's going on. I mean, what's going to happen, especially with all the, the charges of the former president. That
he may be in jail and be elected president. That's what would be hilarious to see in the United States. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But for now, for me and Eric Lecain here and Lolly Tolentino here on the World News Jam in 2023, December 31st, 2023, New Year's Eve. Everybody have a very safe New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And we will be back again next year, Lolly, in 2024 to talk about more stories going on around the world and keep you updated. So for now, here on the World News Jam on DCRJ and RJTV, we will be signing off for this year. Everybody be safe out there, and we will see you again
next year.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.